Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Move we adjourn the closed session. Second.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye. Call the roll, please.
Moore.
Here.
O'Kane.
Here.
Shaner.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
Waters.
Here.
Stand for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. Clays. Yes. Microphone. Clays called me last night. This is worthy of a commendation. Whereas 25 years ago, the Port of Sioux City Rivercade founded the Rivercade Youth Fishing Derby at Bacon Creek. And whereas this year's theme, Get Hooked on Fishing, Not on Drugs, will be serving 450 Siouxland youth ages 4 to 12, fishing and fully equipping them with gear to fish this summer. And whereas on Saturday, June 11th, they celebrate providing the opportunity to fish to over 10,000 Siouxland youth. And if you want to spend quality time with your child, take them fishing, and that's exactly what Rivercade has done. Now, therefore, I, Robert E. Scott, Mayor of the City of Sioux City, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the 25th anniversary of Rivercade Youth Fishing Derby in Sioux City and commend this observance for all citizens. Can Mr. Wick get a, where'd he go? Can he get a free tackle box? Because he could use a little help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say a few words.
58 years ago, Siouxland business people in the chamber decided to start a celebration to celebrate our connection with the Missouri River, as well as the quality of life here in Sioux City. And they called it the Port of Sioux City Rivercade, and many of us know the history of it. I got kissed for the first time when I was 13, the first year on the
Okay, let's keep it clean now, Phil.
And he hasn't missed a
His name
year
was Patty.
since.
His name was Patty. I was 13. And at that point, I realized I wasn't going to be a priest. So it changed my life. Rivergate changed my life when I was 13. But we've continued that tradition as well as we could. It can never be the way it was, but we still celebrate. The Chamber has, years ago, said that we're the signature celebration of Sioux City, and that's what we've tried to do and continue. We celebrate Sioux City. That's why I brought a balloon. Because today with this is quite an honor, and on behalf of all of Rivercade, I accept it with all the humility that comes with that, because we have an opportunity to improve the quality of life of Sioux City, to celebrate Sioux City, and to create family fun activities. This year we got 23 events that we'll be celebrating, and my favorite is the Youth Fishing Derby, because we have taken 10,000 4 to 12-year-old Siouxland kids fishing and fully equipped them. Wow. And that in itself is something to shout from our highest hill. And we're proud of that, and we're proud to be a part of Sioux City continually, and we certainly thank you. Now, a really cool part of this is our Honorable Mayor Bob is coming out this Saturday at 12:30, and we're going to draw one of the names of the 450 kids fishing this year to celebrate that we've had 10,000. And they get to take themselves and 2 other people with them to go up to Okoboji and fish with John Grosvenor. He's a guide up there. Many of you might remember he was a newscaster here in town. And he is the premier fishing guide of the lakes area. So we're giving that to one of our children this year. And God bless you all. And thanks for being with us with Rivercade.
All right, buddy, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a Historic Preservation Commission. Larry Obermeyer, come on up, Larry. Probably didn't have to come back. You probably would have got it no matter what, but it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Tell us why you want to continue to serve.
Yes, I
appreciate the opportunity to apply and interview for a second term on the Historic Preservation Commission. I'd just like to continue the great work that the commission has done over the past few years, and looking forward to some new projects next year. One of the big things next year is our town will be the focus of historic preservation, with 2 conventions coming here, the Preserve Iowa Summit and then the CNW Historical Society. Both of them will just focus on historic preservation work and placemaking. So I'd just like the opportunity to continue to do that.
Good for you.
And Larry, did you say that those were going to have their convention at the Warrior so that they
The
can?
Preserve Iowa will be at the Warrior. The other one, they haven't decided yet on the venue. They're still taking proposals.
Trust them.
Yeah, it will. The other thing is we're really excited about the special projects we have, that the nomination projects for Hubbard Park, Historic Pearl, those are moving forward, and those will be showcased at that Preserve Iowa Summit, so it's real exciting.
Thank you, Larry.
Good work,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Keep up the good work.
Good work.
Okay, now be real nice to Sandy. Sandy, come on up, and she's real nervous, so
So we-
tell us why you want to serve. And
Well, I am now a senior, and I go to the senior center a lot. And I talk to all these people down there, and what I want to do is kind of ask them what they like, what they wouldn't like, take it over to the committee, and maybe we can help some of them.
sounds good. Questions?
Thank you for
I just
making
want
the
to,
application.
I just want to note that Sandy's already attended her first meeting and was involved with the meeting, so
Good.
she's already got one under her belt.
Excellent.
Okay, we'll let
Thank
you
you.
know. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan.
Presentation of the Woodbury County Law Enforcement Center update. Who's doing it? Yeah?
Right.
Remember what I told you, boys? Brevity is to be practiced here today. We're kind of visual guys. Don't you have any pictures or anything you're going to show us? No. Oh,
I'm Shane Albrecht. I'm with the Baker Group. I'm the owner's rep for Woodbury County Law Enforcement Center Authority. With me is Kevin Rost. He's the architect from us. We've got Kenny Schmitz, Building Services Director. We've got Ron Wick, Authority Chair, and I've got Mick Paw. He's our communication thing. So Kevin, if you would, why don't you give an update of where we are?
Yeah, we just want to take an opportunity to meet with you guys, kind of give you an update on where the project's at. Been under construction for several months now. Kind of made some slow work through the winter months, put it in foundations, but they've got a majority of the deep foundations and foundation walls in. They started putting in some of the shallower foundations. A lot of the underground utilities and mechanical electrical plumbing has been installed and continues to be installed. They've got precast concrete, which makes up the majority of the building's exterior, as well as a lot of the interior and the detention areas. It's supposed to be showing up here within the next month, I believe.
It's supposed to be showing up June 23rd.
So once you see that, once we get the foundation work done, you'll start to see a lot of walls go up. There's a lot of steel on site, structural steel for the roof framing, the rest of the building framing, and that will continue to be installed and erected once that precast is there and on site. In addition to that, they're going to start doing some more pavement work out there. They've got a portion of the driveway paved so far. I know they've left out a portion down there on 28th Street that they're going to connect to once that timing works out with the on-site project. Beyond that, just trying to get more and more work done as the time allows. I think they've got, so the building has pre-engineered steel cells that will be coming from Georgia, manufactured down and be shipped to site. Those are supposed to be showing up, I think, mid-August, if I remember correctly, on that schedule. So that's kind of the big key component for the housing of inmates there within the facility. So completion date is scheduled for June 15th, thanks, for that, of 2023. So still got a little ways to go on the project. We want to take this opportunity to meet with you guys, give you an update on where that project's at.
how long till the streets hook back up?
Shane, I'll let you, you're a little more familiar with that piece.
For those of us that live out there and get to run around your detour that takes
So
forever.
the detour on, so the single lane traffic on 28th is scheduled to be done in August. So it's about 3 months, it'll be single lane. There will be 3 days during that time that the road will be completely shut down. While they're pouring it for safety reasons, the road will be closed for, right now, 3 days.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. I'd like to thank Councilman Dan Moore for all of his efforts on the authority. There seems like sometimes when we're doing things, it takes forever for it to happen, but Dan is always there, and I'd like you to know that he's doing a great job, and I'd like to thank him for that.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the entire council on behalf of the county. I believe this is probably an historic project where a county and city, at least in Iowa, have come together on a project of this size. It's much appreciated. And also, again, I'd like to thank Dan, who puts in numerous hours assisting us. So it's much appreciated. I think Mick would like to talk about our Facebook page.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, and on it we have updates, videos, pictures, and press releases of everything going on out at the Law Enforcement Center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, guys, thank you. Keep it up.
Yep.
Today,
Thank
the
you.
consent agenda is items 4 through 17D. Consider them to pass unanimously, but unless a council member asks for a separate vote. If you want to speak on an item, please come up as I read it. State your name and address for the record. If you want to speak on an item not on the agenda, please come up under citizens and concerns. Again, state your name and address for the record. I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
I need to amend number 4 to include the minutes from the May 25th joint meeting of the Human Rights Commission. Is there a second to that?
Second.
I'm going to call the roll on the amendment.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Abstain.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
5 is a motion accepting the annual evaluation of the Art Center Director. 6 is a resolution rejecting the bids received for the Pierce Street Water Main Replacement Project. 7 is a resolution adopting plans and specs for the annual Storm Inlet Repair Project. 8 are actions relating to grants. A is a resolution authorizing the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad applications for the IDOT Grade Crossing Surface Repair Program. B is a resolution approving the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Nonprofit Grant Program Funding Awards. C is a resolution approving a grant agreement with the FAA to fund the procurement of 1 snow removal equipment carrier vehicle and rotary plow replacement project at the airport. 9 are actions relating to street closures. A is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area June 17th to the 19th and June 22nd to the 23rd, 2022 for the Firehouse Bars Biker Weekend events. B is a resolution temporarily closing various streets in the downtown area July 15th and 23rd and August 12th for the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino Batteries Park Concert Series. 10 are actions relating to bonds. A is a resolution authorizing the issuance of GO Bonds Series 2022A and amending the levy of taxes to pay said bonds, approval of the tax exemption certificate and the continuing disclosure certificate.
Mayor,
Yes.
would you mark me down on 9B, Battery Park Concert Series as a abstention, conflict of interest? Thank you.
B is a resolution authorizing the payment of taxable GO bonds Series 2022B and amending the levy of taxes to pay said bonds, approval of the continuing disclosure certificate. 11 are actions relating to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution authorizing a pre-construction agreement with the IDOT for the resolution of for the addition of the right-hand turn lane in connection with the signal relocation Iowa 12 to West 19th Street project. Please tell me what this is. We just did that street over. What are we doing here? I guess I don't quite understand this. It already has a
Dave Carney, Public Works Director. As when they did the 3 lanes, there was public comment that they wanted to have a right turn lane there for vehicle storage when the tree was
right
there.
turn. Okay, my bad.
So it was too late to add it to the project, but they were able to get it in. Actually, they thought they were going to do it next year, but were able to do it.
All right. B is a resolution approving engagement agreement with Ehlers and Cooney PC to provide services on labor and employment matters. C is a resolution approving a contract for transportation services with South Sioux City. D is a resolution approving supplemental agreement number 1 to the standard consulting contract with Yultig Engineers for the Milwaukee Road Shop Historic District Road and Museum Trail Improvements Project. E is a resolution approving amendment number 3 to the service provider agreement with First Class Security to increase monthly skywalk security costs. F is a resolution approving a renewal option 2 to the service provider agreement with Gill Hauling to provide waste containers and haul waste away at the wastewater treatment plant. G is a resolution awarding a service provider agreement to Burnite Glass to provide and install storefront doors at the Tyson Event Center. H is a resolution awarding a service provider agreement to Burke Engineering Sales to rekey doors at the Tyson Event Center. I is a resolution awarding a service provider agreement to Thompson Electric to add door fobs access systems to doors at the Tyson Event Center. I'd need to abstain on that item. 12 are actions authorizing payments. A is a resolution approving change order number 2 and 3 and authorizing payment to KP Construction for the Fawcett Street Storm Sewer Repair Project. B is a resolution amending Resolution 2022-0511, which approved partial settlement of a tort claim and an authorized payment. C is a resolution authorizing payment to Chem Contractors for repairs to the Grandview Park Band Show. D is a resolution accepting the work and authorizing a payment to Nystrom Electric for the Sunnybrook Drive and Sargent Road Traffic Signal Project. 13 are actions relating to property. A is a resolution proposing to sell property and rescinding all conflicting resolutions. 3455 Maplewood Street, the petitioners Austin and Shannon Speckman. B is a resolution proposing to grant an easement at 1501 Morningside Avenue and 3600 Vine Avenue, the petitioners Morningside University.
I'd like to abstain on that item, please. Conflict of interest.
It's a free one too, right? You're not even paying for the easement.
$1.
$1. Wonder what would happen if I wanted to put like something over my road and how much I'd have to pay for that easement.
We'll make you a deal.
You'll give me a good deal?
We'll make you.
I'll wait for that. 14 is a purchasing. A is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Hawkins for the purchase of sulfuric acid for the water treatment plant. B is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Utility Equipment Company for EZ valves for the utilities field headquarters. C is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Karis Corporation for sodium permanganate for the water treatment plant. D is Bernie's Lawn and Garden. 1 is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Bernie's Lawn and Garden for 8 Toro 4000 HDX Pro Series 60-inch deck riding lawnmowers. 2 is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Bernie's Lawn and Garden for 3 Toro 4000 HDX Pro Series 72-inch deck riding lawnmowers.
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm going to abstain on D1 and D2 for conflict of interest.
15 are applications for cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, vapor permits. See the list, come forward if you have questions. 16 are applications for beer and liquor license. See the list, come forward if you have questions. 17 are boards and commission and committee minutes. See the list, come forward if you have questions. Anyone to be heard on any of those items?
Would you also mark me down for the Hard Rock abstentions, conflict of interest? Be 15A4. Well, I need 15A4 to abstain, and 16A1, B, and B1A. Thank you.
Passes 5-0. 18's recommendations in planning and zoning, a hearing and ordinance rezoning 3133 Harris Street and 2940 Hale Street. The petitioner is Jason Mann. P&Z recommends approval. I'll move it.
Second.
Public hearing is now open.
Well.
Yeah. Long time no see.
Yeah, Michelle Bostonellis. I'm wearing my Planning and Zoning Commissioner hat today, filling in for Mr. Geary. So the two items here go together. The petitioner is requesting rezoning and vacation of the streets of the east-west alley. They would like to construct a house on the property. The property is currently zoned AG, which requires a minimum lot of set of 20 acres, but the current property is 0.6 acres. The current setbacks would allow just a buildable area of about 300 square feet, which the minimum would be 640. So the petitioner is requesting the rezoning to NC1, so as be able to construct the house and be able to match the neighboring property zoning. With that comes along with the vacation of the streets as well. The planning staff went back to records, back to 1888 is what they had said. So the vacation of both streets would extend the vacation that was originally performed in 1900 to get that done. So there was a positive recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission for both of the items. I can answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone be heard? The hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. Anybody opposed to waiving the statutory rule?
No.
I'll move that.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
O'Kane.
Aye.
I'll move second and third.
Second.
Passes 5-0. 19 is a hearing and ordinance vacating Harris Street, Granville Street, and the east-west alley adjacent to 2940 Hale Street. P and Z recommends approval. I'll move that.
Second.
Hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. Anybody opposed to waiving the statutory rule? No. I'll move that.
Second.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
I'll move second and third.
Second.
Me?
Gotcha. Thanks.
Passes 5-0. 20 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the Rivers Landing Parking Facility elevator upgrade. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 21 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the Northern Valley Crossing Regional Stormwater Improvements Project. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing's now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 22 is a hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the fire station at 8 in addition and remodel project. I'll move that.
Second.
Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 24 is the 23, I'm sorry. Hearing and resolution approving plans and specs for the Jepson Park improvements. I'll move it.
Second.
Anyone to be heard? The hearing is now open. Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 24 is a hearing and resolution adopting amendment number 1 to the amended and restated combined Floyd River Urban Renewal Plan. I'll move that.
Second.
Anyone to be heard? The hearing is now open. Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 25 is a resolution approving a Fourth Amendment to the Development Agreement for the Siouxland Expo Center project. I'll move that.
Second.
Passes 5-0. 26 is a hearing and a resolution accepting the proposal of the Hesse Foundation for lease of land in the combined central Sioux City CBD urban renewal area and approving the First Amendment to the lease agreement for the Longlines Family Recreation Center. I'm going to have somebody else move that.
I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 4-0 to 1, I abstain. 27 is a hearing and resolution accepting the proposal of the Hawkeye Rifle and Pistol Club for the leased land in the Donner Park Urban Renewal Area and authorizing a lease property at 6217 Mitchell Street. I'll move that.
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Anyone to be heard? Seeing none, the hearing is closed. Passes 5-0. 28 is a resolution approving the annual action plan for the Sioux City Consortium deferred from May 2nd, 2022. I'll move that.
Second.
Passes 5-0. 29 is a motion to consider an appeal of Sam Moose requesting an exemption from the requirement of sidewalk construction at 3650 Correctionville Road. I'll move that.
Second.
Now, clarify what a motion to consider an appeal means, so we all know what we're voting on.
Sure. The motion's on the floor just for the consideration today. If the council elects to take action or direct staff, you could make a separate motion waiving the requirement or upholding the requirement for the sidewalks.
So either way, staff would need direction. We're not really voting on anything with this motion or this.
We're both
Correct.
consider it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, doesn't it?
Yes,
It's not
you
worded.
can correct. The way that the code is worded, it just says the council can consider an appeal. That's what is set out in the city code.
So we'll all vote aye unless, that we're considering it unless
And you
we
can-
give direction. Is
Yes.
that right?
You can move to waive the exemption for the sidewalk.
Correct.
Yes.
I think I understand what you're saying.
That's abundantly unclear. Go
Unclear.
ahead.
The code, unfortunately, the code isn't.
We're
it
just
doesn't
voting to
direct.
consider his appeal.
The council has the power to either allow an exemption for the sidewalk or uphold Dave Carney and Public Works
Staff's recommendation.
to deny the exemption.
Do we have to pass the motion first, though, to consider? Because if we didn't want to consider it, we would just vote no, yes to consider, and then the next motion would be to waive or not to waive.
Yes, procedurally, we could do it that way.
So then we need to vote.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Is that clear, Matthew? No.
I'm voting yes so that we can.
I don't blame you
choose
for
to
being
hold it.
confused. The code just says the council can hear the appeal.
Go for it, Dave.
Dave Carney,
Well, we
Public
gotta
Works
have a
Director.
vote first. Gotta-
Oh, it's a
you gotta
motion to
vote yes or
consider.
no.
I got you.
Let's
You
take
vote no, we don't have to worry about it. Or you vote yes, you do.
And I don't know that we've had any recent sidewalk exemption appeals before the council since I've been here. I think this is the first one that the council's considered.
So it's why there's this.
I have a question before you start. How did the building on the corner of Outer Belt, northeast corner, how, that,
I can give you, so,
well, there's no good answer
no,
because
there is, it's not. We had a young
who
engineer.
signed it off?
He no longer works here, we'll just put it that way.
I'd like to see that form.
Yeah, he just flat out didn't,
Request it.
It's
when they did the DRC, he didn't mention sidewalk, and that was an error on his part. And yeah, he's no longer an employee, so I would rather not. I can give you his name afterwards, and then when it came up to the second home, there was only they only have a 25-foot of frontage, and at that point, we're like, well, it's so far away from any other sidewalk, 25 foot isn't really, that's all.
A large connection.
Yeah, that's
And
only
there's a
front.
sidewalk across the street that runs the whole length.
Correct. And they pulled a demo permit on the old hospital site, but that doesn't require sidewalk installed just because they pulled a demo permit. They haven't pulled a construction permit on that site yet. Those are the 3 parcels going north from Outer Belt. So
It's all one parcel with the ground up above now, though.
No, they're still separate parcels. And
Same
there's
owner.
actually different
Same
owners.
owner.
Yeah, no, they're actually different owners.
Oh,
Yeah, all 3 of them have a different owner. Same family, yes.
now Dave, are you going to give us a bit of a timeline on this whole topic?
I sent out a timeline. It was late in the day. I'm sorry. Jeff had to help me put it together. Frankly, I was not involved with this at the beginning. If you don't have it, I have it.
I don't, I'm sorry.
I got it. No, because I'll just pull it. Yeah.
On Friday, Julie asked me to put a timeline together of how things have gone. It dates back to February of last year, when he initially met with planning. And like I said, Jeff had to help me put a lot of these dates together. So they initially met with planning, and they were considering an 85-lot subdivision on February 2nd. He closed on the property on February 5th. Had a meeting with engineering on the proposed 85-lot subdivision March 5th. That's when he was told that he would have to connect to sewer because of its proximity to the public sewer system. He received his wetlands determination from USDA on May 28th. On June 24th, met with planning with a concept for a 12-lot subdivision, getting him more than 200 foot away from the public sewer so he could eliminate that. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to have to assume he started grading based on that USDA.
This is all property that's zoned ag at that,
Yes.
when he purchased it,
Yeah.
right? It's
So he wasn't
farmland.
required to get a grading permit from the city.
Okay.
Greg started grading, I'm assuming sometime in June. Mr. Moose can probably give you a better date, but it was done not under the purview of the city. In October 18th, he met with planning and engineering, including myself. And we started ferreting out some of the issues that were in place. At that point, we still hadn't received plans that had all the dimensions on them, so it was harder for us to look at things. November 18th, he went to DRC. Still, we didn't have plans. I think we got plans that had the vertical alignments, but was still missing other information. He met with Gordon the day after that to discuss the technicalities that were on some of that. November 30th, a pre-plat conference. I don't know if we even need to go through all these, but
Yeah.
there was erosion control issues in December. And as you can go on, I mean, lots of meetings and and I think we've all discussed this. I think it really comes down to there's one issue that you could grant an exception under that I think would fit, and that's the existence of severe topography conditions, which make construction of sidewalks structurally impractical or economically wasteful. And I think the engineering's perspective on this was if they'd gone through the normal design process and thing, with all the grading work that was done on that site under the ag thing, that property could have been properly graded to accommodate a sidewalk. I don't think we disagree with Mr. Moose that currently it would be very difficult to just flat out try to roll out a sidewalk on that piece of property. But I think the thing is a lot of this was done is well, I don't like this rule or this requirement, so I'm going to change my development to something else and change it to something else to try to avoid. And that's kind of how this has gone through the process, even going from the 85 to the 12 lot to now the 1 lot, which was discussed that would be split. I don't know if that accurately kind of describes it. But that's the one bullet point I would say that if you looked at through this would be that the waiver would cover the waiver. But like I said, we're looking at it as they moved the amount of dirt on that site. I will say whether a waiver is granted or not granted, and he proceeds with his development, there are still some outstanding issues as far as, especially if he's looking at dividing other lots off, as far as his requirement for fill addendums by our city code, and also the requirement for how he's going to do his manage his stormwater management. So my only reason for bringing that up is in a lot of the correspondence, it's that we're picking on them. We're not picking on them. There's just requirements that have to be followed. So, but if I'm not adequately describing it,
My biggest thing, I would say that there's
I'm sorry to.
State your name and
sorry,
address for the
Sam
record.
Moose, 3225 46th Street.
Thank you.
My biggest argument would be that it's not a matter of just a grading thing. There's no storm, no gutter, no curb. This is an undeveloped street. It's not a legal.
It's an old
It's
state.
only 20 foot wide. And all this would be, there's no water utilities through there. There's no nothing. It's completely undeveloped. That would be, so it's not a matter of just grading some dirt. There would be storm drain extensions, curb and gutter installed. That would be, really
No, But
reconstructing.
divide your issues, though. You're talking about to do sidewalks, or you're talking about
To
to
do
do
the
the other
sidewalks.
issues that he's concerned about?
To do the sidewalks, and that's what we're here today. I mean, if, and again, Lord, he's talking about splitting. The only thing that's proposed and will be is 23 acres. That'll still remain ag. That will be in any time near future. And I don't have any other plans in the works or anything else for anything else. So it's not a matter.
Yeah, I know, but you're gonna sell a lot to your daughter, then you're gonna sell another lot, and then we're gonna be,
My next son said he has a 10-year plan before he thinks he'll be able to have the money to build there. So in 10 years, maybe I'll be back, maybe it's before, I don't know. I mean, but it is 150 acres, so it's not a matter of a development to splitting off 23 acres to me, doesn't qualify for a development.
well, it does to me. Here's my problem. If you're gonna develop this, and you're gonna pull a lot here and a lot here and a lot here, pretty soon, you just circumvented the plating process that we go through as a city. So if we don't make you put a sidewalk in today, then you come back and your daughter wants one, where do we finally say we have to have a sidewalk? And I don't wanna hear, listen, I don't wanna hear about how wide the street is. I don't wanna hear any of that. You can build a sidewalk. You may have to make it a little higher than the street, but you can build a sidewalk. Other people have done it. So where does it end? Because if you're gonna come back here 4 and 5 times,
Here's my biggest problem with this whole process is there's not a standard. I mean, sidewalk
There is a
waivers
standard.
are granted all the time that aren't as difficult as this. And that's my biggest problem. with this
answer
process.
I'm trying to help you here, but I wanna know answers.
I mean, I have immediate plans of plotting off 23 acres. After that, I have no plans. So I mean.
Okay,
there's
23
150
acres of what? For whom?
For my daughter to build a single-family house. That's where, and it's, I don't know, gosh, 700 feet from my driveway. So it's not even like it's close to my driveway, but it is on the same parcel. But again, when you're talking that much land and that much area, I mean, I just, and again, as far as, I don't think there is a standard of when and how a sidewalk waiver is granted. I just think it's.
Well, there shouldn't be any
But there is though. I mean, they do all the time.
No, they don't all the time.
I don't know. I filed in the last 10 years. I filed twice myself and received both of them. And like I said, both of those weren't as difficult as this. So
Well, if they're granting them without this council knowing it, they've got problems with me because they know I'm not very happy about the Persinger deal. It irritates the heck out of me. It irritates me that we would grant those without this council knowing it. And if that's the case, if you're telling me that there's a lot of them, I want to know what they are because I'm going to take that away from the engineering department if I have a vote, because I'm going to be fair with everybody.
That's
And
my
it's
thing.
unacceptable that we're granting these if we are.
The engineering department under the code can grant the waiver. I don't know of any, like, waivers off the top of my head. I can go back to Gordon and
I
find
know
out
my
if they.
son-in-law got a waiver granted for 58th Street before they found the water table was too high to build their home, so they quit building, but he was granted a waiver just last year. So, I mean, granted.
Where at?
It was on 52nd Street. I don't know. I'm not sure, but that was just last year. And the only reason that project didn't go forward is because the water table was so high, they couldn't have a basement. And anyway, they didn't go forward with all the engineering it would took to resolve the water issues. So, I mean, that's one I know of, personally. I know other houses go up. I mean, you see houses all over the place that are being built that don't have sidewalks. And that's.
No,
I
you
just
don't,
feel
Sam. You just
I
don't see them
know a
all
few,
over.
I mean, well, and I
You
noticed one.
don't, you don't see them all over. Don't come tell
Well,
me
I'm
that.
not saying there's
Don't, listen to me. Don't come and tell me that without addresses, because that's not true. You can't tell me there's building them all over town without.
I know it
without-
happens. So, I mean,
Well,
the
it may
one,
happen, but they're not doing it all over town.
I mean, and if that's, we could probably do some investigating and see, but that's not the point, and that's not where, I mean, I just would like to be held to the same standard if they would normally, and granted, I do think this came together quickly. I think a decision was made that sidewalks were there right before a planning and zoning meeting without really investigating I mean, I know Gordon's the one that recommended it, and he sat here and said that the water doesn't drain out of the street, and it clearly does. I sent pictures to you guys earlier. So I think it really wasn't investigated very well when that decision was made, and now how do they come back on the recommendation? That's what I feel like happened, but I don't know if that's what, but if I think it was just not given at that point, I didn't even have the opportunity to submit a sidewalk waiver and put where my stance on why we need to get one. We just was deemed that it was feasible for the planning and zoning meeting. And I think that's why we're even here today. It's just, now it's hard to backtrack from that quick decision without really completely looking into the project.
Dave, if the council would vote to waive or to grant an exemption, can we tie that back into something in the future? In other words, if there are lots that are developed, where that then the applicant would agree to, if other lots are developed, kind of like the standard he's talking about, so many lots are developed, you'd be able to put in the sidewalk at that point?
On that.
Sure, the code is very narrow related to what can be considered for purposes of the appeal. It just says it can be heard by the city council. The city engineer's determination shall be afforded a presumption of correctness, and the applicant shall have the burden of proof by clear and convincing evidence. The decision of the city council shall be final. So it does not indicate that the council can give direction. It's either upholding the engineer's decision to not allow an exemption or to deny, or sorry, to allow.
I understood, and maybe this is that we were proposing that maybe they could have like a buyout.
Well, two of the things I put as alternates, and I didn't run these by Nicole, would be if there was if there was a second. The issue being with tying it to building permits, my only thought is, especially like if it was 10 years down the road, let's say you said he could do 2, and then on the third one, he'd have to put the sidewalk. Well, 10 years from now, he could have sold his house, and does that revert then to the new property owner stuck with that responsibility, or does it fall back on Mr. Moose? That's the only one where that one, when I put 1 because he had already talked about building another one. The second thought would be is we ran an estimate of what it would cost for him to run. He has 1,100 foot of frontage at $8 a foot, would be about $44,440 to run sidewalk, and then we could take that money and do other infill sidewalk projects. That would be, I don't know if that's allowable, if that would be acceptable.
I actually
These sound like all items that could be negotiated potentially outside of the hearing process today in front of the council.
I do think this is a good option. I think I think of a lot of infill lots that I've done where we put in sidewalks that really didn't make any sense to tie into the neighbors. It's probably not ever going to happen. I would much rather have that option, not only on this one, but on another one, that money could actually go into a sidewalk program that actually could tie sidewalks together and make them usable sidewalks. It just seems a lot of those, which it's not a lot of money, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a small lot, but it just seems like a waste when it's not going to be really ever tied together. I'd rather see that money go into actually building sidewalks that could be used. But so I kind of was intrigued by the idea of it. And to me, any waiver that is, then if they want to pay that money, then it's not a matter of not wanting to put in sidewalk. It's truly a matter of not a sidewalk being used or be able to be tied in together. I do think that's a reasonable, I think, to me, to be held to that standard now when that's never been done is kind of unfair, but if that's what it is to go forward, I'd rather see that happen than, I can't emphasize how hard and difficult I think it would be to put in this sidewalk and how unfunctioning that it would be and not be a practical good sidewalk. I still don't even know how some of those things that would be resolved to put in a sidewalk with that one drainage ditch being so close to the neighbor's fence. I don't even know how, because you can't just move the ditch to add the room for the sidewalk, because now the ditch would be going right into their fence, and I'm not so there's a lot of issues. It's not just one issue, there's several issues. Going back to that development we had, we were gonna spend the money, you guys were gonna help pay for doing the retaining, or some kind of barrier so people can't fall down there, and we actually had an agreement now to be 1-2 houses. I just don't see, and even then that still was a difficult sidewalk, but at least we had the money of 12 lots to help share that cost, and now to put it on 1 or 2 lots and with no help from the city as far as building those retaining or fence or what it is so people aren't falling down into that ravine, it just doesn't seem fair. But
So it's all or nothing is our vote, really.
Or a potential staff additional time to speak with Mr. Moose.
I understand the creative solution that she came up with and that you're saying is intriguing. I just worry about precedent being set. Because then we are establishing precedent, you know what I mean, moving forward, where someone doesn't want to put in a sidewalk and they're like, well, hey, I have this creative solution where I'll just donate this money and you can do infill. And I just worry that we won't ever get a sidewalk then that could run to Bacon Creek. And I understand that that could be a ways off, I really do.
Well,
but
my thing to get a sidewalk to Bacon Creek, that road is gonna have to be improved. And if that road gets improved, my sidewalk would be tore out. So at that point, the idea, I would, like I said, who wouldn't love to have a path to get to Bacon Creek, but to put this here is total, it's just not an approved street. I mean, I would think a simple standard for a sidewalk waiver, if there's no storm and gutter and curb, that really eliminates, because all that water goes and drains off the road onto where the sidewalk would be. And so, I mean, it really is a pretty simple way to have a standard that this is one of the things that's required to have a sidewalk waiver. If you have that, if you don't. And right now it just feels like it's just a judgment
You
call.
can't do that, Sam. You can have I mean, you go to other towns, guess what? They don't have curb and gutter necessarily either. They've got highway curb. It's all over the world other than Sioux City, Iowa. So, and you still have some storm sewer, I understand, but if that sidewalk's 10 foot off, you could put a sidewalk there, and you can go to the other side and put sidewalk on, because it's flat there, and it wouldn't make one bit of difference.
So maybe it's not a straight.
I mean, that's the problem. I agree with Alex.
Most of the time, though, I would say if there's not curb and gutter and storm, that a sidewalk, it's pretty much an undeveloped street at that point. But I'm not saying never, it couldn't be, but my point is I don't feel like I'm being held to the same standard as what sidewalk waivers that have been granted in the past. And that's my biggest stance.
Well, I remember when we did my street and nobody wanted a sidewalk. Nobody. We don't have sidewalks now, so why do we need them? And I can only imagine if we didn't have sidewalks today for kids going to North Middle School. I go home at night and it's amazing to me in the middle of the afternoon. And we traded off. They didn't have enough right of way, so they put the sidewalks on the south side of the street, and us on the north side had to give up some right of way to get that in. But someday they're gonna come to me and say, you gotta have a sidewalk. Even though I gave that up, I know what's gonna happen. And you know what, I won't be happy to write the check, but I'm gonna write the check because I see how many people are walking on the street right now.
I want to be clear. I am not against sidewalks. I am not opposed to sidewalks at all. I'm just opposed to spend that kind of money to something that is almost guaranteed is going to be tore out before it's ever tied into somewhere.
I don't think there are any plans to tear out that highway.
No, we just overlaid
there's
it.
no plans to extend the sidewalk either. And to extend the sidewalk would require upgrading that highway or that road, Crutchville Road. So I mean, it's like we're trying to do something for the future, and but we're not.
But you don't know when it will
accommodating-
be here.
Right, I mean.
But
there's-
I
there's
guarantee
to the
you,
mayor's
20 years
point.
from now, when they do that, they're all gonna sit it out there and they're gonna look at the council and say, what dumb council did that? That's what happens around here. When we used to do sidewalk hearings, which we used to do every year, the people would sit there and say, what stupid council allowed us to build houses without a sidewalk? Now we gotta pay for it. Go to by Washington Grade School. I grew up in that neighborhood, not a sidewalk with all those houses.
And that's going back to my point here, is I should be held to the same standard as other people that have had sidewalk waivers. Whether they should be sidewalk waivers, I'm not saying that maybe there shouldn't, or maybe you guys should approve every sidewalk waiver so everybody's held to the same standard. But right now, I'm not being held to the same standard as other sidewalk waivers that have been granted. And so that's one of my big problems. I would rather see, if we wanted to be serious about sidewalks, we need to have some sort of program, whether it's, let's go ahead and pick a mile and bring in sidewalks and connect them and have them so they're all there, and maybe whether that's an extra tax or assessment or how that would be, or maybe if a house is sold, and then at that point, but just to have our only sidewalk program being if there's an infill that connects to nothing, that we just put sidewalks, that doesn't help the situation at all to
No, but
actually
then,
be
then
used.
10 years from now, when somebody to the west of you wants to go up there, and they'll have to put sidewalks in, and then they're gonna say, well, how did Moose get by without?
Well, and then when they go to the west of me and they want to get water, they're gonna have to tear out my whole entire sidewalk to get water. So now their project, instead of costing whatever it is, it's now to tear out the sidewalk. And so instead of 40,000, they're gonna have to tear it out and replace it. And it's gonna be 80,000 plus to put in a water
Well, then
line that's
let's
not
don't-
there. So
then-
it's not an approved street. That's my whole point.
But that's something they'd have to build into their plan if they have a
And
development. I mean,
understand,
it
but
has
the
to be
whole thing is,
planned
the
for.
more and most likely, before this is ever tied in, that sidewalk will be tore out. And at that point, I just think it needs to be more of a plan than just one individual lot and one of these undeveloped places. If we want a sidewalk to Bacon Creek, let's put it in and have assess each house and figure out how we need to get that in and actually have sidewalks that go somewhere. I'm not against and the truth is, I can't put a sidewalk in there for 44,000, not even close to a legal sidewalk. So I mean, where so it just seems.
Well, and Sam, if we did want to put in a sidewalk to Bacon Creek, I mean, we were talking, it was in the in the RCA, talking your property alone is more than 1/3 of the way there to connect it. So I mean, that's a huge chunk that we would be granting a waiver.
Well, not the parcel he's talking about, both parcels.
Correct. It would be both, but it's both of them that you own, you know what I mean?
Can you
Like-
put sidewalks across the street, Dave? You
I
don't
guess
have.
I haven't looked across the street to
It's
see.
not much better. It'd be a little better.
I was gonna say,
It doesn't
there's-
have all the the big deep ditches. It would be easier, but not near as easy as, or it's still not as easy as like a normal. It'd still have to be on the curb, well, on the street since there's not a curb. But it is not, but at least you wouldn't be dealing with those big ravines and big storm drains and all that. So that part would be a lot easier. You'd have to, it'd be more down to just grading and wouldn't have to be. I don't think any water or curb, all the street goes to the other side.
And
I just want to reiterate what I said the last time is, we didn't feel comfortable as staff as granting a waiver because when it came forward with the 12-lot subdivision, it didn't seem like the council was in favor of granting the waiver at that time. So as a staff level, we didn't feel comfortable, beyond saying that we really believed the work to make it accountable or accessible to build a sidewalk should have happened when they did all the other grading work on that property. They should have come up with a full-blown plan to grade the property, make whatever accommodations they would have had to do to accommodate the water at that time, and develop the plan at that time. That didn't happen, and we can't go back from that point. So, but what we're saying is, this definitely wouldn't have gotten a staff waiver because.
Well, it could go back if he went back to his plan and actually submitted a grading plan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He could still do all of his lots as well then.
And that's what I wish had happened, Sam. I wish you were doing the development. I wish you would have came in the beginning because the work that you did is incredible out there. You've moved a lot of dirt. And if you would have worked with city staff on the front end of that, then you could have had a beautiful development, and the investment then that you would have graded that to put in a sidewalk would have been I mean, that would have been with all the work you already did out there.
And that whole thing was just one frustration after another that finally, it wasn't just one thing. And I still feel like it was.
Well, because it felt like you
final
circumvented things. It was
Oh, I didn't
ag,
say
and so
that.
you were doing grading under ag, but then you come forward and it's a 12-lot subdivision,
And the
so it's
grading
not
I did-
ag.
The grading I did is on maybe 10 acres. I mean, there's 150 acres there, so I would never, I mean, maybe if we were doing the 85 lots that I originally came, okay, then we'd have a grading plan. Then we have then we're spending millions of dollars and
Yeah.
$200,000 sidewalk is reasonable.
Yeah.
But now I'm to the point, and this was an option from day one. When I came in, this was kind of, and I talked to Jeff, and they said, we'd rather see an actual road put in there. And so then I tried going forward with that. When I got too much opposition, I got frustrated and fed up, and that's when I came to the council and I was done. So now I'm back, and I'm, and I mean, the whole grading thing and stuff, and I know that was a grading nightmare, that ravine. I put a lot of work in there. I know when the DNR came out, they were thrilled to see that take care of it, and it's turned out wonderful, and I'm, super happy how it is.
Exactly, and that's where I wish you would have came to city staff, because then if we all could have worked together and been on the same page, it would have been a beautiful project.
I'm just, in hearing Dave talking stuff, I'm pretty safe to say, if I would have came with a one-house project, you would have granted me a waiver where that's sitting, without having all that previous history, and we would have never even been to council. Is that pretty safe to say?
I would say you would have been better off than how it went, and I'm
Where
not,
we already- and the
but
council
where we had
already-
already
and
made, there'd been
I understand.
input from the council level, it probably would have been more apt for us
And
to look at something like that.
Am I completely wrong to think that decision was made kind of quickly before that planning and zoning? I mean.
I can't speak to that, because I wasn't involved
I just
with
know
that.
when he sat here and said, there's no drainage that drains onto that side of the street. I mean, it clearly does. I sent pictures. So, I mean, he obviously didn't look very close at it for just that simple thing. Or did he look at the ravine, how deep it is, or on the east end, that there's literally 3
Well,
foot.
again, Sam,
I just
I
feel
don't want to
like it was a
relive all
rushed
that,
decision.
rehash it
I
all,
just really
but I
feel
mean,
like-
I mean, would we maybe have been more apt to grant the waiver? I would have to say probably, yeah. I mean, but like I said, after we got input that it seemed like they didn't want to grant the waiver and they wanted to have the sidewalk, and then you start to look at the totality of how much of the sidewalk this covers the gap. Even your one parcel is 17% of the gap between where sidewalk ends in Greenville and where Bacon Creek Park entrance is. It's a significant portion.
Okay, what's the council?
I would do.
Yep. Well, I got a couple of questions though for you, because I'm still uncomfortable. I think just if you're going to have vision as to what's going to happen with Correctionville Road, I just don't want to kick that can down the road and say, well, there won't be doing anything.
I think we're 15 to 20 years,
But
just overlaid that road. I don't see us making improvements to widen it.
Yeah, but I think it's significant to look at if we're going to build up out there and have housing and do all that we want to do. I just think it's an it's an important piece. So, well, I'm just saying I'm uncomfortable with it. And then do you recall on the north side where I don't think it was a sidewalk here, and I think the neighbors wanted us, or somebody wanted a sidewalk because kids were walking in the street up by Sylvian Way. Was that because of the lay of the land that it couldn't be done? Or?
No, it just became how much it was we would have to go through the assessment process and what it was going to cost the individual property owners. And the one gentleman would have been in a very similar situation that Sam is. His sidewalk would have cost him probably close to $40,000 because he had a very large corner lot that he would have covered around. I think you could have made the sidewalk work through there. It was just.
But it was buildable, huh? Because it looks like a terrible drop-off.
It would have been Class A up against the edge of the road, and then it had a drop-off on the other side, just very similar to what.
It'd almost have to, wouldn't it?
Yep. And that's where it kind of dropped, because not all one resident wanted it, and there was none of his neighbors were in favor of it, on that one.
Died. Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Any other questions?
How many waivers are requested?
I don't.
Can you give us a ballpark?
No idea, Matthew. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just, they don't usually even get to my level, and I'd have to look to see if we've granted any and most of the homes we're dealing with are in newer subdivisions where it's just not even a question.
I guess going back, Mayor, you asked where we're at. I guess I'm where you were when we started the discussion, is I want to know what the threshold is, because I thought that staff originally had the right plan, that it was like, look, we won't, with your single house, but then the next house that's built on there, we are going to require it. Now, the unfortunate thing is you already plan to have your daughter do that. So then what's the threshold? Do we say, well, then the third house that's built? And then to Dave's point, if you would ever sell your house, then does that count as the third house?
To me,
and that's the threshold? Because I do think we are setting precedent here, and I want to the mayor's point as well, we have to have vision about the future, because the decisions we make here do affect for the next 20, 50 years, whatever it is.
To me, I ask to be held to the same standard that other sidewalk waivers are granted, and that's my thing. I feel like I'm not being held to that same standard, and whether that's 500 feet in my
But
single
that's
house
not,
or
here,
another 500
I'm gonna
feet
go
down the
back,
west.
stop, right there. If these guys, I already said this, if these guys are granting waivers that we don't know about, then they better start telling us, because I'm telling you right now, I've sit in enough sidewalk hearings that I'm not sitting in them anymore. None of these guys have the courage to do them, thank God. But if they do, they're not fun. And what you get is every time, why would you have granted that sidewalk waiver back in 1962? I mean, I got blasted when we finally did sidewalks out to get kids up to Washington grade school. And it's not fun. And I'm not a sidewalk waiver guy. I'm telling you that right now.
And
You
I know
gotta
sidewalk
figure it in
waivers
the
are
cost
granted.
of your development.
And clearly, then you guys don't know about sidewalk waivers being granted. Maybe that's something we need to look into, see how many
I
waivers
just said
been
we're
granted.
gonna be looking into it, because we're
Right.
gonna be
And
taking it
that's what I'm
back. If
saying,
I
and
find
that's
out
all
they've
I'm
granted 20 sidewalk waivers in the last 2 years, I don't know about the rest of council, but there'll be a motion that they don't get to grant them anymore, and they can vote against me on it. But I'm not gonna sit here 5 years from now and have people say, why'd you do that, when we didn't even know we did it? Because I don't agree with them. I really don't. That one up there on Outer Belt absolutely infuriates me. Absolutely. I heard the same thing from that medical clinic when we made them put sidewalks going up Outer Drive.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, they said, well, that sidewalk goes nowhere. You know what? 20 years later, that sidewalk still goes to nowhere. But guess what? They got one. So whenever we finally get the country club to do a sidewalk, it starts. And you can't say you're for active transportation. You can't say you're for people to walk and then not put sidewalks in. You can't do that. That's where we make mistakes here all the time.
And we can't assume that every sidewalk waiver request that is made is granted.
I know, but we need a history
Right,
now.
right, but we can't assume that,
it's
Sam,
the
that
code
people are
is written
asking
in
and they're all
there
getting
when-
it.
What requires is if it's difficult to do, and it's in there. So to me, if it meets that nobody can say this could this be much more difficult of a project to build a sidewalk?
Again, had you graded the way you could have graded when you were grading,
I didn't even grade within 1,000 feet of the
I know,
problem
but you
area.
had somebody out there and you could have graded for a
But it's not a
sidewalk.
matter of just grading though, it's extending a 4-foot by 4-foot
Okay,
culvert that
what's the
collects
council-
200 acres.
Mayor, I have a question for Jeff Hansen. Because we're talking about developing lots, do a lot now, do a lot tomorrow, do a lot next year. But if we're in the quarter section, Jeff, you can do two lots, but once you get to your third lot, you have to do a subdivision, don't you?
That's correct. Jeff Hansen, Community Development Operations Manager. Mr. Moose is aware that his next proposed split, what's being referred to as his daughter's lot, does require a plat. So he is aware of that. A portion of that 40-acre parcel has already been split off, and so that's what will trigger that. And so this particular house does not require the plat. It's never been split, but the next one will.
Thank you.
Yep.
We'll have it come back that way. Subdivision. Correct, Jeff? I mean, that would come back to that'd go to plan and zoning and then council.
Right, we had to do that at our farm.
What's the council want to do? Because you want to have staff negotiate? Do you want to leave it the way it is? What do you want to do?
Well, actually, the other thing, if you're going to think outside the boxes, I'm thinking, I wonder if this would be a better situation for a bike trail or for recreational trail instead of a sidewalk right by the busy roadway that's already too narrow. And people, and I can't remember what you said the posted speed was, 40?
Oh, I don't know.
45? Is it 40?
I think it's only 35.
30. I was going to say 35.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure about that.
And let's just say everybody's going 35 or less. But I thought, well, I wonder if a bike trail would work into what you're doing.
And
To get it to-
one of my biggest problems too is a terrible amount of expense to not do anything. I would be much more, even bringing it all the way across, if there was some sort of way to whatever to actually be a functioning sidewalk, I wouldn't even, we enjoy, I have 10 grandkids that go on walks. I mean, I don't think sidewalks are a bad thing, but just, I don't think this particular place just justifies having a sidewalk that is gonna, like I say, I would be shocked if it's not tore out before it ever ties into another sidewalk. Because it'll never, until that Crutchville Road's improved, they're not gonna be able to get to Bacon Creek until you fix some of those drainage and install some storm and gutter and take care of that water issues and drain it across. So that's my biggest problem is I feel like it's completely wasted. And if his proposal is $45,000 can go and build sidewalks that somebody can use, I would rather do that than have a sidewalk that literally is not a safe, it doesn't meet, it just does not meet to me what a sidewalk should be. And that's where I'm at. So it's not, I just don't want it to sound like I don't want sidewalks. It's just this is
I know,
not.
we hear
this is
that.
not
We
a-
hear that, Sam.
Right.
This
We
is
do.
not a practical place to try to put that kind of money in a sidewalk. If we're gonna have sidewalks, let's have a plan and put in sidewalks. You know, let's do it and have somebody that can walk to Bacon Creek. But that's not to solve it, just to put it on me that someday in the future somebody might be able to tie into it is not, is so unlikely that.
You know, when we redid Country Club Boulevard just a few years ago, what did we hear? We only need sidewalks on one side. We don't really need 5-foot sidewalks.
We
Geez,
don't need to tie into the
we don't
bike
need to
trail.
tie into everything. And I drive up there because my kids live in that area. I never have driven that street since then that I haven't seen at least 2 or 3 families walking dogs or kids on bicycles. The problem, Sam, for me is, where do you start? Where do you stop? You gotta have.
I agree. There needs to be some sort of
And
standard.
it,
But, and
you know,
again, though, the
if it
one
wouldn't have
thing
been for Connie Bodine's daughter getting killed up there years ago, they would have never had sidewalks up there. Fortunately, he was the city manager, and Connie, in his wisdom, got behind figuring out where people needed sidewalks for their kids to be safe. And in the 60s, we were so happy to have somebody build a house in Sioux City. I can drive you today to the 60 house subdivisions, and I can show you where they're at. You know how I can show you? There aren't sidewalks yet. That's how I can show you. And people are walking in the dang street.
To me, a big difference with that was a proposal to actually go somewhere and have a functioning sidewalk when it's done. To spend this kind of money for a sidewalk that more most likely is tore out just seems crazy to me. That's where
You'd be
I'm-
surprised how many people up there didn't want them when we redid the street.
I believe, but at least they had a plan to actually have a sidewalk. I've ran on that whole thing all the way down. It's a great path. So I'm not, I guess like I say, it's not a matter of the money, it's a matter of putting that money there just to throw it away.
They also had on Country Club Boulevard, they also had the wisdom to make it at 100-foot right-of-way. So, I mean, we already had the right-of-way, we didn't have to
Well, we
take.
have a 100
We didn't
foot
have to take.
You got
any-
plenty of
road.
right-of-way. The problem is you got a bad terrain.
Yeah, there's.
We have that, plus I'm still uncomfortable with a road that's gonna eventually be improved, I would think, if you start picking up
But you had sidewalks on Country Club Boulevard. You took them out and you put them back down, didn't you? When you did the street. We put new sidewalks. We're doing Whispering Creek today. Most of the sidewalks are coming out as
They all
part
are.
of that. And we're putting them down.
And we're expanding it, actually.
I mean, that's what happens. So if you think it's gonna be 10 or 15 years,
would
Whispering
be on
Creek's
our
only
dime,
20
then.
years old, guys. We put Whispering Creek Road in 20 years ago, and we're tearing out sidewalks today. And is that a good use of money? Probably not, but you know what? People walked for 20 years and on that.
Utilized it.
Utilized them,
And
so.
if this
Lots
could
of
be
families,
utilized for the
lots
next
of
15, 20
activities.
years, I wouldn't be here arguing it. But it's not gonna be. It's just, I don't know how anybody could get to it, or that's my biggest problem. It's not. And if that's improved, it'll actually be, I'm sure they'll extend the drain out and use the right-of-way and actually have a sidewalk 10, 15 feet off the road. Or maybe it is a bike path at that time, or maybe it's, 8 foot wide. There is a 100-foot wide right-of-way there. So to me, to throw up a sidewalk that really isn't illegal on the curb with no curb and gutter and put in all that structure that'll be tore out before we can ever feasibly extend that sidewalk, it just seems silly.
What's the wishes? What do you guys want to do?
Well, we passed the motion to consider, so now and there's no motion on the floor, I don't think.
No, that's what I'm asking, if you want to do one.
And staff said that they're not willing to grant the waiver, so if someone wants to grant the waiver, they would have to do that.
Or direct staff to go back and negotiate. Correct. Defer it for a couple of weeks.
I'll make a motion, because I know you love being here, but I'd rather be gone.
You're only at
Baseball
5.
game started, so.
Yeah.
I gotta be up
We
for
have
baseball in a half
baseball.
hour.
We have baseball, then.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, I see your point.
I think we all do, I get that.
And so what I'm trying to do is tie it in, so when there is development out there and things are starting to pop, we can get a sidewalk put in without having,
And when you put that sidewalk in, I'll sign anything that I'll pay for the sidewalk when we tie that together. I mean, it just makes no sense to do it now until that development's done. And I promise you, I wouldn't complain 1 second about it if we were actually tying into a sidewalk.
but that's what has to be negotiated. We just can't do this on the floor right now.
Correct. The two options that I see that the council could do, you could either move to grant the appeal and the exemption and vote upon that, or you could move to uphold the denial of the exemption today.
Well, from what I've heard, I'm not in favor of upholding the denial. If we can work something out where a sidewalk would eventually be put in, a safe sidewalk, and I know any sidewalk's better than no sidewalk, I get that, but it just seems like it's, I mean, I guess I'm agreeing with Sam on some of this. And Dave, you made all the good points, you really did, and we've got both sides, and I'm just trying to weigh that, but that's where I am. So I guess, at a minimum, I'd want to have the staff try to negotiate something with Mr. Moose that would take care of having the sidewalk put in when that gets developed out there.
Make a motion, then.
I'll move that we, go ahead. What?
No, I guess I just need clarification, because I don't know what the goal is. Like, I don't know what telling Dave, I mean, come on, Sam is.
I think he's looking to say that we either have some sort of, which I don't know how we have an agreement, because I think that would have to get recorded against the parcel, and that becomes tough to track, and somebody 20 years down the road's got to remember that when whatever the trigger is that triggers it, I think.
Well, a good real estate attorney, when Sam sells them.
When I die, so I don't worry about that.
Yeah, see that.
So I think the better of the two options would
Thank
be if
Thanks for not
we want to negotiate is that we do an offset. He
We
pays
could make them
sidewalk.
have title insurance protect that, though, you know that, right? If you want to really protect your interests, you can have title insurance, make sure that happens. Am I right?
Iowa's just kind of on their own out there.
But they still have, you can still get.
If you want to
title
consider that,
insurance
I would
even now.
recommend you do a deferral and then come back with some options.
My only problem is then that just creates more work in the future, because anybody that doesn't want to put in a sidewalk says, hey, I'll pay for this guy's sidewalk, I don't want a sidewalk.
And that's what we were just saying, is that I just don't think I can be in support of that. It's,
We want to set a standard, let's set a standard. Always sidewalks,
Sidewalk.
and anybody that doesn't want a sidewalk, bring it before the council.
Well, that's an ordinance change then. Yep.
I don't
like
want
that
to
would-
create a fund for other sidewalks. I would want a commitment that a sidewalk would be put in when the property's developed. What's
That's what we
developed?
have now.
and that's what staff said was the threshold, but then his daughter's coming in to build another
Right.
house right after.
And maybe if it's simpler, then I'll just move around another parcel, and then we don't have to, what is that really resolved? But she likes her little spot that she's staked out, but well, she's been disappointed.
And you want to
before.
help her out, I get it.
So I don't know. If that's the deal breaker, that I can't split it off, then maybe we don't do that. I don't think that's necessarily, I just don't feel like that there needs to be a standard how this happens. I don't think everybody's being held
This
to
is
the
going to
same
help
standard.
establish that.
I don't feel like I've been
Yeah.
held to the same standard.
You could consider a standard while the deferral, if we defer it.
Well, that would be a complete ordinance change, and I don't know how that would apply to something that's pre that ordinance change. I don't know if that's really, that's a completely separate subject.
I can imagine, Sam, this
think
conversation has been a catalyst for change where there won't be many waivers. If the mayor, his direction holds true, I'm sure this will be a catalyst for that, so.
Well, when you have all the issues of drainage and everything else that comes with it, it's not just putting in a sidewalk.
No, it's not. We acknowledge that. We just acknowledge that if he would have followed
Protocol, or
protocol from
came
the
and
beginning and
spoke
done
to
it,
staff.
instead of, I'm going to grade for ag, wink, wink, I'm going to develop this after I'm done, and graded it, but I'm going to ignore this part of it, that if I would have had a requirement to do a development, I would have been required to have sidewalks or sewers or whatever, and I want to keep finding a workaround, then we wouldn't have these issues. And I've explained that to Sam before. It was the workarounds that get us to this point where we're in an issue where every time he wants to do something, there's another code that's frustrating his ability to build this house.
This whole process, I was in contact with the city and the workers. I never did anything, even going back to the sod bus, the city was aware.
But you
that,
didn't have a
you know,
grading plan because it was under ag.
And that was, I didn't do that without the city's knowledge. I mean, I had a discussion.
No,
with
but you
Correct.
did it
I
so
mean,
you
wasn't
didn't
like
have to put a grading
Exactly.
permit up.
because I didn't know what I wanted for grading at that point.
But you weren't grading it
like,
to be ag site. You weren't going to move cattle there.
That was honest to goodness, an option on it was whether, and actually most of that, where that grading is, was always gonna be for my cattle. I was always gonna keep at very minimum 50 acres, and I was gonna run my cattle and pigs just like my my 15 acres before. So it wasn't.
That was after the 85 lot idea?
Even at the 85 lots, I was keeping 50 of it. That would have been my 50 acres for my farm, and then the rest would have been developed. So I always was gonna build my house there, and always was gonna be ag, and always was gonna run like I've been doing the last 10 years in my house right now. So that always was part of it. So it wasn't, and again, wasn't like it was against the rules. It was allowed, and it wasn't like I was doing it in secret. I mean, it was up front with everything. So it's a matter, maybe they don't like it, but I didn't do anything that I wasn't supposed to do.
It's not that staff has anything against it. He followed the law, but there was no grading plan submitted. There was no.
I'm going to move to uphold the staff recommendation at this stage. That's our two options, one to deny or one to uphold.
Second.
That doesn't mean they can't continue to negotiate, but I'm going to move to uphold that. That's what the city attorney says we have for options. So call the roll, please.
Waters.
Aye.
Moore.
No?
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye. You still can negotiate with Mr., and if you want to get involved in it, get involved in it.
Wish you were doing the 85 lots too. We sure need them.
Yeah, you and me.
I'd be more
both.
sympathetic to working on that than I would be.
I was going to say, that's what I would want to work with you on.
I want to just encourage development, but
All right.
Yeah.
Citizen concerns, are there any citizens to be heard?
Sandy, you want to come up? You have any? No?
Matthew?
Took my kids this morning to get free bus passes for the summer. It was real easy, walked right into the MLK bus station, signed a piece of paper, got free bus passes for my kids. So anybody with kids,
Thank you for bringing that up. I shared that on Facebook not too long ago.
that's pretty awesome. It was really quick and easy, so I'm excited for that. The Sioux City
Probably
Museum-
violated state law of the free 295 rule, but go ahead. Have Nicole rule on that one.
The museum's having a Kids' Day going on a safari Thursday at 10. And then we've got the Leeds Parade on Friday too, and Harry Potter on Saturday. So another fun-filled week.
Where's Harry Potter? Symphony?
Orpheum, yep.
Orpheum Symphony.
I get my daughter-in-law some tickets. Thanks for reminding. Okay. Julie?
I don't really have anything. We had a Pride Festival downtown this weekend. I wasn't able to go. I was on grandma duty, so, but the pictures that I saw were fabulous. I'm going to let Alex talk about the new lighting that kind of came out at the same time. I'm on that lighting committee. I serve, and I'm so happy to see.
Well, then you should talk about it.
Oh, well,
I'm not on the committee.
It's phase 1, or phase 2 that's happening. The phase 1 were the festoon lighting on the corners. Phase 2 is lighting up the underside of the skywalk bridges. So 1 was completed, and we have the rest of them to go on 4th Street down there, historic 4th. And it's all to help improve the walkability so people feel safe. I mean, it adds excitement too. They can be set for different colors, green for St. Patrick's Day, whatever. But really the goal is to light up the area so that we can get from one side of the city to the other and feel safe while we do it for both residents and for visitors. So.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's really good too.
Yeah, I would just say that there were a lot of exciting things happening in our community. I mean, I went and spoke at the Pride Festival, the kickoff of the walk down there, so it was great to have some large crowds in town for that, and people participating. And another thing that was going on was out at Miracle Field as well as SYA, the arena had their tournaments that were going on out there, and I saw that that was pretty wildly successful. And then finally I went to Waitress that was at the Orpheum. That was a really good performance and it was really well attended. So it was great to see and have so many things back in our community. Just would encourage everyone to continue supporting those things. That's all I have, Mayor.
I would just want to state I appreciated the transparency of the Woodbury County Law Enforcement Center update today. I don't think there's anything that goes unanswered with what the authority does in that regard. And yes, 28th Street is, the outer drive is difficult, and I agree with you on that. And for some reason, they couldn't put in another lane for 2 lanes of traffic. They couldn't do it, so. The other thing is just a reminder to everyone that the legal discharge of fireworks would start July 3rd at 1 p.m., goes to 11 p.m., and July 4th from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I'm hoping all of our citizens will respect their neighbors, know their surroundings, and be aware that the Sioux City Police Department has made a strong commitment to make sure there's compliance to our laws. So July 3rd, 1 to 11 o'clock p.m., and July 4th, 1 o'clock to 11 p.m. That's all I have.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Take any.
More,
More.
more.
I know I'm thinking about. I mean,
Don't
whenever
forget to
somebody puts
vote.
that kind of stuff in front of me, it just.
I just want to take any of that action.
Aye.
O'Kane.
Aye.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott.
Aye.
Waters.
Aye. I agree.
Going over to talk to those boys and girls?